Greetings and salutations. I give honors to you all, for when man honors man, he honors his universal Father, the supreme ruler of the universe. For the record, I would first like to say, I freely and cheerfully acknowledge that I am of the African race, and, in that color which is natural to them, of the deepest dye, and it is under a sense of the most profound gratitude to the supreme ruler of the universe. I suppose it is a truth too well tested, that we are a race of beings, who have long labored under the abuse and censure of the world, that we have long been looked upon with an eye of contempt, and that we have long been considered rather as brutish than human, and scarcely capable of mental endowments. Why will men forget that they are brethren? The color of the skin is in no way connected with the strength of the mind or intellectual powers. The one universal Father hath given being to us all, and that he hath not only made us all of one flesh, but that he hath also, without partiality, afforded us all the same sensations and endowed us all with the same faculties, and that however variable we may be in society or religion, however diversified in situation or color, we are all of the same family, and stand in the same relation to him. I ardently hope that your candor and generosity will plead with you in my behalf, when I make known to you who I am, and the various activities to which I have accomplished throughout history. My name is Emmanuel Mual-E. My grandmother on my mother's side was named Molly Welsh. She was an African woman who worked as an indentured servant in Europe. In time, she saved her money and bought her freedom. She traveled to America, and she would buy African slaves and then give them their freedom. One of the Africans she married and had children with was a prince from the Dogon tribe named Banneker, my grandfather. Molly Welsh and Banneker were the parents of my mother, whose birth name was Mary Banneker. My father was also an African prince, from the Gold Coast, who was kidnapped and sold into slavery in America. His slave name was Robert. But, in time he became a freeman when his freedom was purchased by the Abenaki Native American tribe, when they learned of his royal lineage. Eventually, he would become a prince of the Delaware Moors. As a child growing up, there was a tradition of science, learning, and education in our household. My grandfather Banneker taught us the way of the Dogon tribe, which emphasized the importance of astronomy and mathematics in making predictions on various events, and the cycles and seasons in nature. As a child, I was a self-taught autodidact, and this upbringing provided me with the foundation of who I was to become as an adult. And just who I'd become as an adult, you may ask? Well, there are indeed two answers to that question, and some of you may find the revelation of the information quite surprising, but the time has now come for it to be disclosed that the greatest operative Mason, and the greatest speculative Mason, in American history, were in fact one and the same person. I created two pseudonyms for myself, and I am certain that you have heard of them both. As the greatest operative Mason, I labored under the name Benjamin Banneker, which is a code name for Benjamin, meaning Ben-Amen, son of the Hidden One, and Banneker as a derivative of my grandfather's tribal name, Banneker. As the greatest speculative Mason, I labored under the name Prince Hall, which was a mystic or allegorical name referring to the fact that my grandfather and father were both princes, and I built halls in the form of lodges and temples. As Benjamin Banneker, I am known as an African-American astronomer, astrologer, scientist, mathematician, judge, and surveyor. I calculated 7 almanacs, of which you only know of 6, which I authored and published between the years of 1792 and 1797. The calculation of these almanacs were the production of my arduous study, for having long had unbounded desires to become acquainted with the secrets of nature, I have had to gratify my curiosity herein, through my own assiduous application to astronomical study, in which I need not recount to you the many difficulties and disadvantages, which I have had to encounter. These almanacs forecasted weather, sunrise and sunset, high tide, low tide, phases of the moon, solar and lunar eclipses, planting seasons, and other cyclic events in nature. My 7th almanac forecasted more than just the weather. It predicted the future, but it was seized by the authorities after they burned the home of Benjamin Banneker after his apparent demise. I constructed the first clock in America, the Clock of Destiny, which was actually a time machine. I also constructed America's first striking watch, and this is why the clock in London, Big Ben, is really named after Benjamin Banneker. As an astronomer, I charted the movements of the stars Spica, Arcturus, Regulus, and Sirius, my favorite lucky star. As Prince Hall, I am known as the founder of African Lodge No. 1, in America. According to the quiz book of Prince Hall Freemasons, it explicitly tells you that the hero Prince Hall could have been an elusive double character. Note that the birthplace, date of birth, birth parents, and early years of life of Prince Hall are all unclear and subject of speculation. I know you may find it hard to believe, but if you check the dates, you will see that both Benjamin Banneker and Prince Hall lived around the same time. And although I was the founder of the African Lodge No. 1 in America, I was the Grand Master of George Washington who initiated George Washington into the Masonic Order. This is why Benjamin Banneker was appointed by George Washington to the commission to design Washington, D.C. I turned the square on its corner, and made the astronomical observations and calculations for the layout of the grid of Washington, D.C. This is why D.C. is in between Virginia and Maryland. It is symbolic of D.C. being put between the Virgin Mary, and the buildings line up with the stars just like the cities in ancient Egypt. I also designed the layout of the city of Philadelphia. Well, on that note, I will leave you with this. Remember, evil communication corrupts good manners, and I hope that good communication corrupts bad manners. And now, I shall conclude, and subscribe myself, with the most profound respect, your most obedient humble servant, Big Ben Bay, Emmanuel Mual E.